This is a brand of plant-based food products which are designed to make animal products feel like a waste of money. I was a big meat eater. I even had a business that sold meat predominantly, about as carnivorous as you could possibly be. And they all were being fed into this grinder alive. And I thought it was like some kind of extreme snuff video, like something I really shouldn't be watching. I wanted us to utilize humor, shock, surprise, all of these quite strong feelings. That is what I felt would make people fall in love with the brand and try the products. Why do people get such glee in the media from being derisive about veganism?
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the Viva vegan podcast with me, Rachel, and we're filming today at the This HQ in West London, and we're joined by the wonderful Andy Shovel, who is co-founder of This. Thank you very much for joining us today. I thought we'd kick off today by talking a little bit about This. So I'm sure all of our listeners at home will have heard of This. It's basically impossible to go into a meat alternative aisle without seeing this isn't bacon, this isn't chicken. But I suppose it'd be good to hear from you if you could just sum up, what is This?
So This is a brand of plant-based food products which are designed to make animal products feel like a waste of money, essentially. So we make all sorts of meat alternatives, from plant-based chicken to plant-based bacon, plant-based sausages. We're also going into a new area end of this year, beginning of next year, which is going to be sort of whole food-based, really highly nutritional products. And they'll be, I guess the way you can think of it is if tofu was reinvented in 2024. And so it kind of tackles that ultra-processed foods debate head on and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I was just going to say, because there's been a lot of talk about ultra-processed foods and people saying that meat alternatives aren't actually good for you. And I eat a lot of tofu and a lot of meat alternatives, so I think I'm quite balanced, but it'll be really interesting to see how you reinvent tofu in the 21st century. Yeah,
I'm super excited for people to see it, actually.
Nice.
It's a genuine new piece of innovation that people haven't seen before.
Cool. So has it always been your dream to work in meat-free alternatives, or is it something that sort of happened throughout your career? How did you get onto this path?
Yeah, definitely not always my dream.
Yeah.
I used to have KFC twice a week, and I was a big meat eater. I even had a business which was a restaurant takeaway business that sold meat predominantly.
Yeah.
So I was always about as carnivorous as you could possibly be, I reckon. I would even have it for breakfast sometimes when I got to work early.
Yeah.
So no, it wasn't always my dream. After I sold that business with Pete, the other founder at This, in 2016, we decided to get into sustainability somehow for our next career move. So it was a bit rudderless in the sense that we didn't know exactly which part of sustainability we wanted to be in. But one of us, and we can't remember which one it was, said, have you seen what's going on in the States with Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat? It's really interesting. So we looked at what was going on in the UK, and in contrast, the brands, in our opinion, were quite legacy and a bit old-fashioned and a bit musty. So we kind of felt like there was a lot of room to innovate in the plant-based space in the UK. So we looked into it. At that point, I was not remotely mission-driven.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in sustainability, and I wanted to be a constructive force on the world, but that was about it. And then around the similar kind of time, a few months later, I saw a video of chicks on a conveyor belt that a girl I was dating showed me. Actually, she just thrust the phone in my face. I was like, look at this. And it was all these fluffy little chicks on a conveyor belt, and the camera panned over to the side, I think it was to the left, and they all were being fed into this grinder alive. And I thought it was some kind of extreme snuff video, something I really shouldn't be watching.
Yeah.
And it was actually, as you will know, what just goes on routinely in the egg industry in this country and abroad. So I started to look pretty much instantaneously into the egg industry, into other industries like dairy and meat. And over a course of months, I went first immediately vegetarian and then without eggs, and then I went fully kind of plant-based.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my journey, and then now I'm here and I'm kind of very, very mission-driven.
Yeah.
And a huge part of my life now is sort of advocating for animals, and I'm starting my own charity in the area. So it's been a complete kind of U-turn, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I think a lot of people generally get into the vegan lifestyle because of the animals, but I'm starting to meet an increasing number of people who get into it because they want to be more sustainable and they want to help the planet, and then once that door is open, then they start learning more about the animal side of things. So let's talk a little bit more about the charity that you're setting up, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So I understand that it's to do with sexing eggs, which sounds pretty weird. Can you explain more about that?
Yeah, so our first project will pertain to the egg industry, but it will be a much broader sort of charity focusing on animal cruelty issues in the food system and in fashion and in animal testing. Wherever animals are exploited or harmed, the charity will look to try and help. The charity is called A Bit Weird.
Okay.
I'm calling it a charity, but we haven't been granted charitable status yet. Our application went in a few months ago. But A Bit Weird is, I guess its USP is that it will take some of the marketing playbook that I've learnt growing this into the non-profit area. So what I mean by that is, at this we've sold a lot of vegan stuff to non-vegans. And in my opinion, there's a real art to it, and there are things you should do and things you shouldn't do. And I feel like I've refined that skill set over now the last kind of, four and a half years since we started. And I'm excited to try and deploy it in A Bit Weird. Yeah. So to give an example of what I'm talking about, A Bit Weird will lower the bar for consensus for people. Because at the moment, I think the bar for consensus is pretty high. You know, with animal advocacy, it's like, it's all really grave, it's all really terrible, the dairy industry is evil, the meat industry is evil. If you even so far as agree, then you we don't have consensus. Whereas what I will say through A Bit Weird is, we think 30 million chicks a year in the egg industry being put in gas chambers is a bit weird. Yeah. If you think it's a bit weird, then you agree with us and sign our petition or get involved in some other way. So it's kind of trying to make it mainstream. Nice.
Yeah, it sounds really good. That actually nicely leads me on to my next question. I wanted to talk about the marketing that you do at this. I'm a marketer myself, so I just find it really interesting. It's quite edgy. Some of the stunts that you've done are quite unusual. You did a funeral procession for bacon. One of my favourite ones is when you tricked the food influencers into eating vegan meat and they all thought it was chicken. Why have you decided to go down this sort of like edgy route with the marketing?
So at the very beginning of this journey, I made the sort of hypothesis that people would not resonate with the brand or be incentivized to try the food if we just kind of lectured them about the environment or about animal ethics, or even really about health credentials. I felt like they might feel defensive because I think people have this instinctive defensiveness when they hear about vegan stuff if they're non-vegan. Yeah. They're like, oh, just leave me alone. I know, I've heard a million times. So I don't think, and I didn't think back then, that it makes people hungry to talk about those things. I don't think it makes them fall in love with your brand. So from the beginning, I wanted us to utilize humor, shock, surprise, all of these like quite strong feelings. I wanted to try and evoke them in our audience. And that is what I felt would make people fall in love with the brand and try the products, rather than the traditional routes of environmentalism or animal ethics and all the other kinds of things that plant-based brands have historically talked about. Yeah, well, it's clearly worked because you seem to be going from strength to strength. Thanks. What have been sort of your highlights so far since you founded the business? Initial first highlight I remember quite vividly was really early on. Like, we'd been trading for only a few months, and a Michelin-starred chef called Berwin came to our office because we were going to work with him on a stunt, and he was going to cook food for these. It was actually for the influencer critics video, so he was the chef there. And when he came to our office to have a meeting about it, he tried our food for the first time. And it was the first time that someone who wasn't me or Pete or an investor in the business had tried the food. Yeah. Because we literally were, I think, only a few weeks old actually. And he tried it, and I could tell from very quickly after meeting him that he was one of these quite quintessential chef characters, right? So like somebody who's very upfront, doesn't mince their words, somebody who will tell you exactly how it is. Yeah. Like, the chefs that you've met, probably similar kind of mold. Yeah. They're cool, very cool people, but they're quite frank. He tried the food and he said words to the effect of, this is really awesome. This is
Yeah.
really, really great. Describe bits about the food that he liked, the texture, whatever. And I was quite late. I remember meeting him at like 7, 8 p.m. in the office, and I was just like knackered. And I just burst into tears, and I was just like, you know, this man who his entire life is food. Like
Yeah.
he's won a Michelin star. He's at the top of his game and has grafted for years in food. And also he doesn't remotely relate to vegan stuff.
Yeah.
So for him to say that was just so, I found it so moving and incredible. It was just a big like stamp of approval for what we had done. So that was like an early highlight.
Yeah.
Later highlights, I don't know, just like people, this is not really a one specific moment, but it becoming normal for people to have heard of the brand.
Yeah.
That's really strange. I still haven't quite got to grips with it. I'm not saying we're like Coca-Cola, right? We're still like a small brand in the grand scheme of things, but you know, around a third of the country have heard of us.
Yeah.
And in the vegan or vegetarian community, it's about 90%.
Yeah.
So the kind of process of going to an event or meeting someone out and about, and them knowing exactly what your company does and who they, you know, what we've done, what stunts we've done, I find that a really novel thing still, and that's an ongoing kind of highlight.
Do you find that the majority of your customers, are they meat eaters, are they vegans? Do you know sort of how that balance falls?
Yeah, so we think about half roughly are vegan or vegetarian.
Yeah.
And then we think about half are meat eaters. So I think that's changing as we grow.
Yeah.
Sorry, take my jumper off.
It's okay.
But yeah, I think roughly at the moment that's where it stands. I say roughly because it's quite a hard thing to specifically get a measure on.
Yeah, because you can't exactly go into Tesco and check every person that's going in, checking the basket. And,
You can survey and you can get close.
Yeah. So I imagine that it's important for you for non-vegans to be consuming your brand. Can you explain a little bit about why this is?
Yeah, so I feel very strongly about this, and given any opportunity, I will always talk quite passionately about it. I'll start with it from a bit of a negative slant.
Okay.
There is a problem which I think the vegan community on the whole does not recognise. And the problem is that people think that they are changing the world and improving the lives for animals by starting a vegan brand that is configured wholly for the vegan community.
Yeah.
And I won't name names, but there are certain brands in our space which are like very, very configured for the vegan community.
Yeah.
You know, they're sort of protest brands, and they have messaging which will resonate very well with the vegan community and not very well with the meat-eating community. So the trouble with doing that is that you are redistributing the vegan pound, if you like.
Okay.
So there will be an absolute number, call it for argument's sake £50 million.
Okay.
There'll be an absolute number of vegan expenditure on vegan stuff by vegans.
Yeah.
If you're just moving that around within its little ecosystem, then net you're not saving any animals. You're not removing any additional animals from the food system. So the problem with that is therefore there is a great need for us to make progress and make it mainstream. And by doing what I just described, you're not achieving that. You're actually saving no more animals than were saved before.
Okay.
You're just paying Peter by robbing Paul and all that.
Yeah.
So that's the negative. On the positive side, I think that brands are hopefully now recognising that the need to make this mainstream, to make plant-based mainstream, and that's why I think it's so important for us to keep growing our contingent of non-vegan consumers. Because I'm here nowadays, not at the beginning, but I'm here nowadays to make an impact and to remove animals from the food system.
Yeah.
The only way you can do that is by selling it to people who weren't vegan previously.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So let's talk about the stunt. So you recently took part in a stunt that Viva Campaigns did, which was slightly controversial. It saw a dead pig, cat and dog hanging from a lorry, and the lorry went on tour around London landmarks. Can you tell us a bit about your involvement in that and sort of why you wanted to get involved in the activism side of things? Yeah,
so before I laid plans to start my own charity, A Bit Weird, I decided I wanted to get into, you know, advocacy for animals.
Yeah.
So I put a call out on LinkedIn basically saying, I'm keen to help vegan charities So anyone, get in touch. And I don't remember if Juliet replied or if I reached out to her because I kind of knew her anyway, one or the other. And I suppose Juliet saw the potential in partnering with me because I've got so much experience in kind of marketing, as I mentioned, like vegan stuff to non-vegans. And I think Viva is a charity that is super open to onboarding non-vegans.
Yeah.
But clearly the core following for Viva is vegan. So Juliet probably saw potential for me to help make the messaging a bit more mainstream to some degree. Sometimes you can do that by making things controversial.
Yeah.
So I was very keen to get involved given the chance, and I pitched a few ideas to Juliet and a couple of her colleagues as well at Viva. And it was decided that the stunt that they preferred was basically to have this lorry going around London with a dead pig hanging from a sort of frame, a dead dog and a dead cat. And above each of the animals, it would say pet animal on a big sign. Above that, in bigger writing, it would say, are you an animal lover? And then clearly below that, you would then see pet animal. You'd be shocked by 2 of the dead animals and not by the 3rd. So that was the idea. We executed it a couple of months ago, and it was, I think, successful insofar as, Juliet was certainly happy. It was successful insofar as it managed to get attention in the national press. I was informed that there was 100+ million impressions on the stunt, which is really great. I heard from Juliet that some of the vegan community were upset by, I guess, the use of a dead pig, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
And I empathise with it. I mean, I had to stand. I'm, maybe just as passionate as they are, right? Like I'm starting my own animal charities. I probably am.
Yeah.
And I wasn't happy standing next to the pig.
Yeah.
It upset me all day actually. But the fact is, I have never and will never, I almost want to say this to camera, I have never and will never care about the sanctity of the vegan church. I don't care about the rules of veganism, apart from not harming animals. That's the one rule I care about. I don't care whether it's misappropriated. I don't care about any of it. I just want to save animals and help animals. So if using a dead pig for a stunt that was killed by a butcher anyway, if using that leads to hundreds of millions of non-vegans having a thought-provoking message being put in front of them, then I'm supportive of it, basically. Would I have gone out and got the pig killed specifically for the stunt? No. We bought it from a butcher or from a farm. I don't remember how it was procured, but we made sure that it was not like supplementary to existing demand. So hopefully that's clear.
Yeah, cool, thank you. So obviously we're both vegans, and you've spoken a lot about getting non-vegans to buy vegan foods to sort of reduce the impact on animals. Where do you stand on people who are sort of flexitarians, vegetarians, dipping their toe in the pool of veganism? Is that something that you approve of, or is it something, are you more of a transitional thing and the ultimate end goal is to be vegan?
Yeah, so my utopia is probably the same as yours, right? Which is that animals aren't food anymore.
Yeah.
And animal products aren't food. So that's where I clearly want things to go.
Yeah.
But to be unsupportive of progress in that direction would in my opinion, be foolhardy. So yeah, I'm supportive of people giving it a go. We've got a big team here at this, and I'm always encouraging them to try more vegan alternatives, of not just meat alternatives, but of all sorts of things. I've arranged a talk with Juliet previously to come here and tell the team about the work that Viva does. So I fully recognise that it's about progress. I also, by the way, I am not as black and white as some vegans are. So we had an email exchange about, asking me whether I eat any non-vegan products. And my view on this is basically that if it doesn't harm an animal, then I'm okay with it. Yeah. So I mentioned to you, and don't mind who knows, I mentioned to you that I have eggs delivered to me once every 8 weeks or so from an animal sanctuary. Yeah. And I'm supporting the animal sanctuary by buying their eggs that they just incidentally have. They rescue hens from the egg industry. Yeah. And so that makes me not technically a vegan. I will use the word sometimes for ease, but it makes me technically not a vegan. Don't care, because for me, I'm not harming any animals, and that's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
So if I fancied them, I would eat oysters, for instance.
Okay, yeah.
I don't want them. I have zero interest in ever having one. I think I tried one when I was a kid once and hated it, and that was the end.
Yeah.
But like, if somebody comes to me and says, should I eat oysters? I'd be like, sure, go ahead. It doesn't have a nervous system, it doesn't have sentience, it can't feel pain.
Yeah.
Doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I also am not particularly keen on seafood. I'm obviously ethically against it,
Yeah.
but even if they found a way of doing it ethically, I'm just not particularly fussed about it. Just the consistency is a bit gross for me.
Yeah, exactly. But I suppose, like, just to cover it off in case there are any like philosophical viewers, listeners, you could bend that logic out of shape quite easily. And you could say, well, what about if the UK or the world's farming industry found a way to essentially take the sentience away from animals and almost put them in a coma from birth, so they were never aware of what was going. You know what I mean? Like, clearly I would not be supportive of that. And we could unpack why, but hopefully we don't need to.
Yeah.
You know, I am for a totally animal-free food industry. So if my eggs disappear because there are no more hens to rescue from the egg industry, happy days.
Nice. So there's been a little bit of anti-vegan propaganda. I was going to say recently, but it's sort of been going on since the dawn of time, hasn't it really? But a lot of newspapers have been coming out and saying that veganism is actually in decline because of dropping meat alternative sales. How would you, as a co-founder of a meat alternative brand, respond to this claim? So
I'd always be keen to see the data behind any claims like that. They don't sound very substantial to me, but there's been a huge amount of press about the death and really severe decline of the meat alternative industry, the category, and the true numbers do not reflect the hysteria in the press. So in full year 23, there was a decline of about 3.84% in terms of volume.
Yeah.
So that is not particularly severe. It is a decline, and I think I know the reasons why, around product quality and price and health and nutrition and all these different things that we can improve upon as a category. In terms of the claims you mentioned about the number of vegans dropping because of the meat alternative sector, it feels unscientific, the way you phrased it. I don't know exactly what you're talking about in terms of what claims, but you can't measure the number of vegans in the country clearly by the volume or sales volume of meat alternatives.
Yeah.
The two could be quite divorced. So the more interesting question actually for me is, why do people get such glee in the media from being derisive about veganism?
Yeah.
It's a really interesting question. And I think I know the answer. I'd be interested to hear your answer as well. But I think the answer is probably that they feel somewhat under siege ethically by vegans whenever they come across them. I'm talking about the mainstream. And I would have been in this contingent of people as well back in the day. And they feel like facing the facts when it comes to their food is quite a tiresome, emotionally testing thing to do.
Yeah.
Because keeping up the cognitive dissonance on a daily basis when you're going about pottering around your office and everything, that's doable.
Yeah.
But when someone confronts you with the facts and the sort of quite gruesome practices that go on to make our animal products, then it becomes quite a trial. It becomes difficult to maintain your cognitive dissonance and brush it under the carpet. And I think that sort of ignites a fire of animosity between the people who are being informed by vegans and vegans.
Yeah.
And I think that vegans can be a bit tone deaf and not really like read the room very well when it comes to conveying these messages.
Yeah. In what sense? Do you mean like they're too like blunt in your face about it? They're too maybe not understanding of people that find it difficult to transition to veganism? In what sort of way?
Well, I think that, and I'm also a massive, proponent of this. So I'm not saying I'm perfect when it comes to this. Like I definitely am a culprit. But what I mean is, once you are sort of enlightened and you understand what goes on to make these products and you are firmly against it, you then, for some reason, I think all of us lose the awareness of all the emotional, psychological nuances that lead into sort of cognitive dissonance of otherwise really kind and nice people that we might come across. And so it's almost like we're telling people what's wrong with the production of these products. And we're like, so it's obvious, like, just stop eating them. Like, clearly you're a nice person, you're a nice lady, you're a nice man, like, just stop it, obviously. Yeah. And it's almost like we've forgotten what it's like to be in that other normal, where you've been conditioned as a kid and you grow up and you're still conditioned that having the breast milk of a cow is super normal. It's a bit of a tangent, but I went to North Korea for a week a few years ago.
That's so cool. I've never met anyone who's been to North Korea before.
Really? Yeah, it was really interesting. And I found it clearly a very depressing experience because there's oppression and hardship like I'd never seen before in my life. But one thing I took from it, which is now an interesting piece of kind of education for me, is that, like, I always had this assumption that North Koreans were completely aware of how bad their gig was. Yeah. And that if you went there, secretly everyone would almost give you like a nudge being like, help. No, not at all. Like, maybe some of the very young people. Yeah. But on the whole, North Koreans are bought in. North Koreans are behind the leader. Yeah. And North Koreans are not looking to be rescued. Now that might sound pretty crazy, and to me it was really a surprise. Yeah. But it taught me, when it comes to the context of these debates about animals and how we exploit them, it taught me that you can be conditioned into thinking just about anything. You really can, and I've had first-hand experience of it. Yeah. So when it comes to the cognitive dissonance that we all probably have at some point in our lives, and most people still have, I think based on that experience I had in North Korea, I'm like thoroughly unsurprised. Yeah. So I think that's a very wordy way of saying that I think as a vegan community, we probably all need to be a bit more cautious about how we communicate these issues to people, and just like make peace with their shortcomings, because they used to be our shortcomings as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point you made about the being enlightened, because I've been vegan for 6 years. I haven't eaten meat for about 10 years now, and it's just so weird to think about a time that I did. But I live with someone who eats meat. My family members eat meat, and I go around to their house and I think, how can you do that and eat it in front of me? But that's obviously just how their minds are, and there's nothing to suggest that they won't go vegan in the future. My mum's just gone vegan. She's in her 60s and she's making the transition. So I think it's a lot of work to be done, but I definitely agree that we can have more open conversations rather than finger pointing. In terms of sort of vegan celebrities, is there anyone who you particularly admire, anyone who you particularly want to work with?
I don't really know of that many vegan celebrities, to be honest. I know Lewis Hamilton's a vegan. Yeah. I was quite keen for him to invest in our company, actually. Yeah. But the fit wasn't quite right when we contacted them. So no, I wouldn't say I know of that many vegan celebrities. There is a guy I met recently who I so admired after speaking for an hour or so. It's pretty random, but his name's Paul Shapiro, and he was just like super passionate. He'd achieved lots in the animal advocacy space in America. He now runs a meat-free new startup brand in America. Yeah. And he's done a bunch of TED Talks and other interesting talks. And I just find him like a really compelling speaker, kind of just like fanboyed a bit when I met him. Yeah. He also kind of gave me an interesting perspective when I was talking to him about, just kind of almost off topic, we had a conversation about, I was explaining to him that I haven't decided whether to sack off my business career and go into advocacy in the sort of midterm full time, or whether to stay in business. And he basically said to me that in the 1900s in the US, there were terrible problems with the treatment of horses, because horses were the main transportation method. They were the main kind of engine and backbone of industry back then as well. Like horses were, I think there were 30, 40 million horses in use in industry in the US. So early animal advocacy groups worked really, really hard to improve the conditions and the quality of life for horses. And they made very little progress. They managed to get watering stations at every other town, all this kind of stuff, but very, very small steps. And then Henry Ford came along, he told me. And Henry Ford didn't give a monkeys about animals remotely, but he invented the combustion engine car, and almost overnight, he eliminated the need for animals in transportation. And he basically facilitated the biggest animal rights movement that animal rights event, that America had ever experienced. And this guy didn't care about animals. So he kind of used that as an anecdote to inform me about how powerful industry can be versus advocacy.
Yeah.
And I found that really inspiring and interesting, and it made me feel good about obviously working at this. So yeah, I really admired that guy. He's not famous, but I really admire him anyway.
Nice. So we're filming today at this headquarters, and earlier we got to go into the lab, which I found very cool, and just sort of see where the products are developed. Can you tell us a bit about how you go about developing the products, if you're allowed to give us the secrets?
Yeah, so there are two kind of pathways, depends on the complexity of the product. I took you to our science lab at the end there, and then I took you to the food development lab. So if a project is going to be really, really difficult and technical, it starts off with the science team. And so they are a small crack squad of professional scientists, food scientists. A couple of people have PhDs in the business as well. And take our streaky bacon, for example. That was a technical, difficult project.
Yeah. And
we had to basically, marry up plant-based fat with plant-based meat without using, whatever collagen and whatever's used in meat to naturally to do that. That's difficult. So it started off with the science team, and they were working on that kind of bonding system in the first couple of steps. And then once the kind of like chassis, if you like, is developed, so the bare bones, no flavor, no color work or anything, once that's developed, it then goes over to the food development team. The food development team will then work on refining, what types of ingredients might be best, where the protein should come from. Then they'll work on flavor, succulence, texture, how fibrous the product is, the appearance, and then eventually they'll scale it up, and then you'll loop in the operations team in the business who will work with the innovation team on making sure we have the right partners to produce it, to pack it, to ship it. So that's like loosely what the process is like. You've got that science part at the beginning, and then you've got the food development part after that.
And how long does it roughly take? I know it's probably different for each product.
Yeah.
But let's just say the bacon, for example, how long did that take to develop?
Well, that was a long one.
Yeah.
That was about nearly 2 years.
Okay, yeah.
But a shorter one can be about 7-8 months.
Oh, that's quite quick.
Yeah, we're pretty quick here.
Yeah.
People will tell you if you ask them in the innovation team that we're too quick and that it's quite stressful. So probably a happy medium between the two is a good idea.
So we've talked a bit already about the future of veganism, but I just wanted to sort of hear from you what you've talked about, a vegan utopia. What, let's just say in 5 years' time, do you think the vegan food space will be like, and how do you think the world will have adapted to veganism?
I think there'll be more whole food-based products out there. We're working on some, as I mentioned, and I think other brands will. I think that the category will return to sort of normalized growth from decline, because we didn't have normal growth. We had crazy growth in 2018, 19, 20.
Yeah.
Like we had like 20, 30% growth a year at one point. So it will be probably normalized growth, like a couple of percent, 3-4% growth a year. I think that the product quality will be probably higher, as in a general rule of thumb, because right now we still have less of a problem, but we still have a problem with product quality as a category. there are some products that you just wouldn't recommend to others.
Yeah.
And that's not good enough because that will repel people who trial the category.
Yeah.
And the real problem with that, by the way, is that, or the problem with that issue is that the cheapest products tend to be the worst. And the cheapest products are the most appealing if you're looking to trial the category. Because you want to go take very little of a gamble.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want to invest in the cheapest thing. So, own label can be a problem.
Yeah.
So in other words, like supermarkets, own label products, they are unfortunately quite bad offenders when it comes to quality. So hopefully the quality will go up. I think price will hopefully start coming down as well over the next couple of years when all this inflation stops biting so hard, and the cost of energy as well and all that kind of stuff hopefully will go down.
Nice, cool. Thank you. And then you've talked a bit about the future of this and the products that you're going to be developing, but I kind of want to hear what's next for you. What do you have planned over the next 12 months? Anything interesting you can tell us? Any gossip? Any news?
So for me personally, so I will be focusing more on my charity.
Yeah.
In the near term and probably the mid-term, I'm still full-time at this, so I'm very focused on the company. But eventually I will be spending more time on the charity. Also, I'll probably start another business.
Yeah.
I think I've got more in me with the business career. So the charity will be part-time, most likely. And I will also, so I'm taking on 1 or 2 non-exec roles as well, because I want to learn about other industries and try and give some expertise. Everyone likes having their voice heard.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that. I've just agreed with one company, a completely different industry, and then I'll hopefully get one more maybe.
Nice, sounds good. Sounds like you'll be very, very busy.
I think so.
So as always with my interviews, I'm going to end with some sort of food-related questions. So what's sort of a typical midweek meal for you? You get in, you've been at this all day, you're getting back to your home. What's the typical thing that you rustle up on a weekday?
So I don't do too much rustling, if I'm honest. I'm quite an incompetent rustler.
Okay.
But I would have generally quite similar meals, which would be tofu and veg.
Yeah.
So like roasted veg with, I tend to go silken tofu. Because
Okay,
I don't like the solid spongy texture of tofu.
That's the thing I like about tofu. Interesting.
Horses for courses.
Yeah.
So I would have silken tofu with roasted veg. I tend not to have that many carbs apart from veg.
Okay.
And so that would be one thing. I also have a lot of corn rawsums.
Yep.
So
With the little
dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Nice. My thrills, when you get to my age, the thrills are do you get a stegosaurus rather than the T-Rex? It's because there are not that many stegosauruses. And so I have corn rawsums, chips, veg. I kind of have the palate of a small boy.
Okay, yeah, nice.
So very unsophisticated meals on the whole.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of hummus, Tyrrell's crisps, sweet chili is the best flavour.
Yeah.
And then snacking is quite prolific.
Yeah.
So Maryland vegan cookies.
Nice.
I really get a lot of joy from them because they remind me of normal eating life that I used to have. Right. There's no difference at all in the cookie.
Nice. Yeah, I used to love those as well. I haven't tried the vegan ones. I've only ever had the OG ones. So
yeah, they're really similar.
Yeah,
which
nice.
is why I love them so much.
To go and get some on the way home. If you could make one food item that's not vegan, fully vegan, what would it be?
KFC.
Okay, fair play. No messing about there?
I cried outside a KFC about 2 years into being vegan.
Because of how much you wanted to have the KFC.
Because of how much I missed it, yeah. I was like a fully grown adult. I mean, it was only 5 years ago, whatever it was, 4 years ago. So it was, I miss KFC still to this day.
Yeah. Have you tried the KFC vegan burger?
Yeah, it's not.
Just not good enough for you?
Yeah.
No, fair enough.
I miss the pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, I really was a big fan. Oh, if I could add one, I know you asked for one, but I'm breaking the rules.
Okay, you can add another.
Jaffa cakes.
Oh, yes.
So
I
I
was
used
saying
to
this the other
have a
day.
Jaffa cake addiction.
Yeah.
I calculated once that I had 66,000 Jaffa cakes.
Oh my gosh.
In my adolescent years.
Yeah.
So I really missed them. I used to have a pack a day basically.
Yeah.
So having Jaffa cakes would be quite a nice treat.
Yeah, they are good, aren't they? Yeah.
I'm actually amazed they haven't done a vegan one yet.
Yeah, hopefully that's in the works.
Yeah.
Maybe by the time the podcast comes out, they'll be launching.
Yeah, I should
Fingers
contact
crossed.
someone because food industry people are generally quite open to speaking to other food industry people. So maybe I could reach out to McVitie's boss and have a chat with them. I think I'm not even joking. I think I will.
Oh, you heard it here first. And then finally, I would like to hear, so it's your last meal that you're ever going to have. What would you have for your starter, your main, your dessert and your drink?
Okay. Starter, I would have a tofu vegan wontons and special sauce.
Nice.
Tofu vegan is, for those that don't know, is a chain of vegan Chinese restaurants, and it's my favorite restaurant. I have my birthday there. So I would have the wontons and special sauce and spring rolls. I'd also have this Italian vegetable soup as a third starter.
Nice.
From a restaurant in southwest London called Ricardo's, who make a really good vegetable soup thing. And then for my main course, I would have tofu and black bean sauce from Tofu Vegan.
Yeah.
With rice. I'd also have, I'd probably have a vegan burger with vegan brioche bun and raw red onion and relish.
Nice.
And vegan mayo, because I like a burger.
Yeah.
Probably have Nando's chips and a Nando's garlic bread on the side.
Yeah, good choice.
Which incidentally is vegan, by the way.
Yeah.
Who knew? Certainly not me until recently. And then for dessert, I would have, I'm not a big dessert person really.
Okay, more like savoury vibes.
Yeah, I'd probably have just, oh, I know what I'd have, some Rhythm 108 chocolate.
Oh yeah, nice.
I love Rhythm 108.
Yeah.
So I'd have some Rhythm 108 chocolate and maybe a Maryland cookie just to wash it all down.
Any drinks to go with it?
Oh, drinks. Probably, oh yeah, probably the naughty Ribena, the sugary one, which I don't have. I've banned myself from it.
Yeah.
So I would have the naughty Ribena.
Why not? Treat yourself.
Well, yeah, it would be really reckless, even though it would be my last ever meal. But I probably would.
Lovely, thank you very much. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you for having us here in this HQ. And thank you to all our listeners at home. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more. Thank you very much. Bye.